Hello, hello, here we are again. And this time we are on the Paranormal World Show, which we have just started under the umbrella of Broadcast Team Alpha. And this will be coming out live on every Sunday at 8 o'clock East Coast time and 5 o'clock in California and Pacific. And we're going to have some fun because this is kind of a brand new show. And tonight is special because we have the very first guest on the show. And I'm going to tell you about that in just a little bit. Nori and I have been doing Broadcast Team Alpha for about 5 years now. It's just about that. And we are going out on, I think it is 19 different platforms, 3 TV stations, and, YouTube, and of course, other places, Roku and Amazon TV and, Apple TV and stuff. So we're getting out there, we're getting a good showing. And if you are watching this show on YouTube, please subscribe and click the bell so you will find out when the next shows are coming out, because you don't want to miss these. And we're going to have some cutting edge conversation here because we're going to talk about what goes on in the UFO field today. There's a lot of strange things happening. And this wasn't allowed to be happening before. So maybe we'll get into why is it allowed to be happening now? That is a good question. A lot of people have been asking that. And there are really no answers out there that is making it to the surface, at least credible ones. But you will also find us on broadcastteamalpha.com. And while you are on YouTube, also, if you like what you hear, just also check us on the Super Chat feature. That is just such a wonderful thing because it tells us we are doing the right thing. And I also want to mention, just in the passing here, that we have a mastermind that Nori Love and I put together about 3 years ago, and we're doing some incredible things with it. We have a larger group of people that join minds on Sundays, and we are bending the laws of physics quite often. We reach into the quantum, find things that is already there, and we bring it back into the physical. So it kind of seems often like we create out of seemingly nothing. If you want to be part of that, send us an email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com. themastermindconnection@gmail.com. And I want to say something about our guest today. And this is something that, well, let me see. Chris, he has been with MUFON for many years. And he is a MUFON investigator. And he have access to some phenomenal stories to talk about different cases that both he has investigated and also that MUFON has investigated. And we're going to get into also a little bit about what is happening right now with the new information coming out on the UFO issue. There is things happening that surprises a lot of people. And I want to welcome to the show there, Chris.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And Chris Harmon, by the way, I'm used to using the first name. Anyway, you have compiled a few cases for us, but I want to ask you something first. What do you feel is going on right now? Why do we see so much UFO information right now that we did not do, let's say, a year or 2 or 3 or 5 ago? Why now?
Well, I think that more people nowadays are taking a more interest in this sort of topic, and we seem to be having a few more sightings popping up all over the world compared to what we had before. And I also think there might be even maybe a slightly darker side to that, that maybe they're trying to put forth a, as we say, a fake or a pretend alien invasion, trying to get people maybe a little bit more worked up. I think you're going to be finding out more about that as time goes on. I don't feel that there is going to be a fake alien invasion. I think it's all just kind of a gimmick, if you want to say, but it is making people take more interest. More people are coming forward with their stories and their sightings. And so I think in the long run, it could turn out to be in our favor or in their favor. But I think time will tell on that.
Yeah, that fake alien invasion is kind of an interesting concept because there is a CIA document on the CIA website that was released because of the time expired of 20 years. And from what I hear is that they keep moving it around, so it's hard to find. But if you go into the reading room, from there you may able to search and find it. I think it's about 105, 110 pages. It's quite
Right,
voluminous, but it is worth reading because it says in their own stationery that this is what they plan to do. You're going to wake up one day and see thousands of ships in the sky, holographic images. And this gets a little hairy to think about because in between there, they may have some real flying discs that we know we have, and they will be shooting at things on the ground, possibly. So this is their plan. But then again, the information is getting out there so much now that they may not be able to do it. I don't,
right, exactly.
yeah. Yeah, I don't see it in our timeline. I don't see it there at all.
No,
There's a
and
lot of there's a lot of interesting things on government website if you kind of dig a little bit. Are you familiar with the so-called smoking gun document on the FBI website?
yes,
Yes.
and that pertains to a few numerous topics.
Yeah. I have several of them actually. One of them is also part of an autopsy report that they have. But if somebody want to see this, the FBI have a document on their website where they explain, yes, UFOs are real, extraterrestrials are real, and but they are interdimensionals, most of them. They come from other realities into ours, and then they go home back to theirs. If you want to read this, you can go to vault.gov.fbi, and then you go to a place called UFO groups. Yes, there is such a thing. And then read document number 6751. Document number 6751, and it is all written in there that yes, we know, and we're communicating with them. Or we have, actually, it's an old document. This is something that is worth looking at. But MUFON has been digging around a lot, also investigating things. And you had some cases I love to hear about because these are established, well-recognized cases that speaks about the truth.
Right, I got some cases here, and I kind of got them in a certain order. We'll go through. I'll start off with a case that some people might find very interesting, and we get a lot of what we call historical cases that also come into our group because people nowadays they're hearing all of this and they're saying, "Hey, I know where I can report this now." So they go and they report their uh, their sighting or their what they might have seen or witnessed. Some of these cases go back a few years, but now that people are starting to come forward, we're hearing cases not only recent, like yesterday type cases, but even some from a few years back. Uh, One case that I'll discuss. This was kind of an interesting case, and I was the field investigator on this particular case. A gentleman was, believe it or not, sitting out in his driveway with a friend, and they were having a conversation, and this was around 9 o'clock at night, and this black kind of saucer shaped ship flew by, and they were both looking like couldn't believe what they were seeing, and they watched as it got closer and closer towards them, and they were both kind of stunned at what they were seeing. Within a matter of seconds, the ship rose back up and moved on. But the funny part of this story is, and we get this a lot in MUFON, after the ship had moved on, it was now 5:30 in the morning. They had lost between 8 to 9 hours of time. To them, it was just a matter of seconds. And we get this a lot, and you think about having that much time lost, and to us, it's only just a matter of seconds. That was a pretty interesting case. He contacted MUFON because he wanted us to know, to help him figure out where that 9 hours went to. What happened during that 9 hours? Was he by chance abducted, him and his friend, or was there a change in the atmosphere? I mean, so of course I telephoned him and we spoke for a while and was able to get him to understand that they may not have took him per se, but they may have came into the area, looked around because he lives on a farm. May have looked around his farmland and then left, but they may have froze him or froze time long enough to make him not realize how long it was. But we get this a lot, and that was one of the cases that really stuck to me because it's one of the first cases that I've ever heard or read of that much missing time.
Yeah. How many people experienced this?
It was just two individuals. They came over. They'd been over for a visit, like a friend coming over, and they were just casually talking out in the way area. One of them said, "Look at that, kind of a weird looking object." It gradually got closer, bigger, bigger, and they're both like, "Are you looking at this?" "Yeah, I see it." And they watched as it got almost underneath them. Then it rose up and left, and now here it is 5:30. So 9 a.m. to or 9 p.m. to around 5:30, that much time had vanished, but only to them a few seconds. And
Oh man,
that
you know my next question, right? Did they ever do a hypnosis to go back and try to find out what really happened?
when I spoke to him, he was considering it, and it's still and we're still kind of in the works with that. He doesn't know if he wants to remember if anything did happen, but I think over time, because I work with a lot of patients and all that, and over time with help and understanding, I can kind of get them to maybe go back and see what happened. But it's one of those things where it has to be up to the person. Do they feel like they want to remember? Do they want to know, or are they better off just being left as is?
Yeah. Wow.
'Cause another thing to remember is the ETs, or as we call them, aliens. If they want us to remember, if they feel it's comfortable for us to remember, they will allow us to remember.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of obvious what that was. That was some form of an abduction, or maybe the ship landed and said, come on, let's go for a ride. They could be invitation also. I don't know. That we kind of lump them together and call them abductions, but sometimes it isn't. People are invited onto the ship.
Right.
And I think that
And now for
yeah, there's probably more of that than we think, especially now in the later, let's say, last 5 years, because there's more of them. And the good guys, our good friends in space, they're coming around more often.
right. And we do get a lot more cases that seem to be more friendly than we do hostile. I know some of the government, some of the outside folks will make it sound more hostile. But I can assure everybody that's watching that most of what we get seems to be more pleasant these days than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've been involved with MUFON for a long time?
Yes, about I would say close to 4 years now, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm. Well, there's some interesting things that happen when you become a field investigators, and you get to see some interesting things.
Yes, you do. You get to see a lot of interesting things. You get to work with a lot of interesting people, and you get to investigate some very interesting cases, and you learned a lot more than what you would learn otherwise.
Mhm. Yeah. And when it really come down to it, I have this habit of talking to people in the grocery store. I strike up conversations, and ever so often I bring up UFOs. Once in a while, somebody said, "Nah, there's nothing to that." But there's fewer of them now. I think over the last several months, I may have found one or two that said, "No, there's nothing to it." But before, a lot of times people's eyes glazed over and they headed for the fish aisle right away. So
Yeah, I work at a grocery store a few days a week to help out. I've been there 25 years. I still stay there just to kind of give them assistance. And and in the grocery store field, you got some people that that hear you talk about something like UFOs and they take an interest, where some people they kind of back off and kind of, well, I gotta go get some ice cream. I'll talk to you later, buddy.
yeah.
I'll tell you a good one. I had a gentleman that heard that I worked for MUFON, and he pulled me off to the side. He says, "I got a good story for you." He said, "I was a little kid at grandma's house. He said, I was out in the field picking corn." He said, "And I saw this blue light come down from the sky." He said, "Next thing I know, I'm at the front door with a sack of corn in my hand." He said, "I don't know what happened in between." He said, and he pointed his finger. He said, "I'm telling you the truth, man."
Really? Yeah.
So there's a case of possible abduction in broad daylight.
Yeah, they have a way to wipe your memory there, but there are barriers that it put into the subconscious mind for that, and you can get around those barriers. That's what hypnosis is all about. You can really do that. And a lot of times, even if people don't want to know what happened, if they do find out, and then you have a better understanding of it, you may even find out why, and why you, and how. And that could create a healing in their mind that maybe they otherwise did not have.
Right.
Yeah. Have you, what about some of the other stories that you have been investigated?
Sure. There's a case that I investigated, and this is a pretty unique case. The gentleman was, hold on 1 second here. Yeah, the gentleman was at a concert, believe it or not. This is a 4-day concert, and this was quite interesting because the whole crowd of people looked up during the second or third night of this event. The event took place on September the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th of 2021. And let me get the name of the place here. It was in 1 second. Yeah, uh, Rock Ranch Campgrounds in Illinois. And it was a heavy metal concert. Of course, they had a bunch of bands playing there for 4 days, but during the second or third day, people looked up around 7 or 8 at night. I think about 7:30 to be exact. They looked up and they saw what appeared to be a UFO overhead. And of course, everybody started taking photos and people started commenting on it. I was hired as the photo analysis guy for this case. So I took the photos. Of course, I enhanced them and cleared them up. And sure enough, you clearly got what appears to be a UFO overhead. And even some of the bands the next day told the audience, "Hey, did y'all see that groovy looking UFO yesterday?" Some people thought it was just part of the stage act, and some people could tell that this ain't no stage act. And I'm gonna do of course, we interviewed the witnesses, and we also interviewed some of the people from around the area to see if anybody else saw anything. This case kind of made headlines uh, in some podcasts and different internet sites, and even made newspaper articles. Upon investigations, upon doing the investigation, we spent months on this trying to figure out what could this have been other than possibly a UFO, because we have to go through our research. You know, planets like Venus, Mars, jets, airplanes, balloons, possible drones. They make drones now that look like just about anything you can imagine. And after all the investigations, this investigation lasted from September clear up to December, and I'll do a screen share if you like, and I'll show the photos we have.
Yeah. Okay.
As you see in this photo, you can see, I'll bring it up closer.
Okay.
There's
Oh,
the people
yeah.
out, and you can see the looks like the spaceship. You can see the moon over here, and then
Mm-hmm.
you see over here, you see the object, and you can imagine all these people back it up, and you see all the people in the crowd looking up at this thing, and they're all puzzled as to what they're looking at. Of course, this particular photo, there was 2 or 3 other photos taken, and what makes this unique is the fact that we did months and months of investigations trying to debunk this thing, and we could not until. And before I show you the final conclusion, there's the concert with the different names of the bands. It was called the Full Metal Assault show.
Yeah, that's full terror assault. All right. Yeah, that's obvious, but that is what I'm concerned. That is just one circular unit.
Right.
Well,
And
I don't know.
what,
It could be a triangle too.
but after months of investigations, here's what we finally came to the conclusion, because we looked around for more photos of the show, because we weren't at the concert ourselves. We asked for more photos. We did a bunch of research, and finally, after several months of investigations, here's our conclusion.
Oh yeah.
It was the stage lights on the stage that was reflecting in the night sky, giving the illusion of the UFO.
Mm. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Yep.
And of course, one could at first sight see that, and immediately think it was UFO, and we all thought it was UFO until finally we started getting more photos coming in, and we were able to debunk it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they're out there, and it kind of amazes me actually that people still ask for disclosure when it already has been done. We have the government documents saying that this is real. We have statements from government officials. And like there's well over probably a decade and a half, 2 decades ago now, there was a guy that works at NASA. His name was Bloomerich. He was given all the picture and the movie footage of things that NASA had of things going on the moon. There were movement, flashes of light, there's clouds up there and all these things, and ships moving across the surface. So he investigated this for 18 months. Plus he investigated some of that the Russians gave him. And he came out and said that it is a fact. The moon and Earth has been visited and is visited by an extraterrestrial race.
Right.
So, yeah, and Medvedev talked about it. And then, of course, we have Gary McKinnon. He broke over in England, a young guy. He hacked into a NASA computer and found, he was looking for UFO and free energy and things, and he found a list of 30 people on a space program, and they were listed as non-terrestrial officers. And then again, he found two ships, USS LeMay and USS Encouters. These, there was under the Navy, and the Navy doesn't have any ships with that name on the water, but evidently they got it up there.
Right.
Among several others, those are the two that he remembered. So why do we still ask for disclosure? Why?
Oh, we know they're out there. We know the proof is out there, and they are revealing themselves to us.
Yeah.
And
And
the
then,
next,
yeah, and then there's this guy in Canada, Bruce Schwartz. You're probably familiar with him. And
oh yeah,
everybody should go to his YouTube site. It's called Bruce Sees All. And he's got a telescope that is so big I could crawl inside of it. And when he aimed that at the moon and just keep blowing up, and turning the knob to the right and closing up, you can see buildings up there, huge mile-long buildings, square buildings and structures, bridges. And also he has seen big explosions with white light coming out of the explosion. That is, explosions are miles wide. So when you hear people saying there's a war in the heavens, I think they're on to something.
that is for sure.
Yeah.
And I also do photography as well, and I get very up close photos of the moons. If you stare at the moon long enough, you can see things, shadows in the background that move. You can see what looks like creatures and buildings, and even like as you said, like smoke coming out.
Yeah.
So they are working. They are up there, and they are working.
Do you have a good telescope?
I don't have a telescope yet. I would like to get one. What I use is a camera with a very, very long zoom, so you can get photos that are just mind blowing.
Yeah, I have one that'll magnify 300 times, and you can really see some good stuff on the moon with it.
Right.
But still, it would be nice to have a bigger one. I think one like Bruce up in Canada. Now check out his site on YouTube. That's Bruce Sees All. That is a good one. And yeah, any other of the cases? I want to hear more about that.
Oh yes, I'm going to switch gears now and talk about some healing. I did a case with a gentleman that said he had bad spinal in his back. His back was off kilter, his spinal cord, and he also had some scoliosis. And he reported to MUFON that he had received healing by ETs. And I actually saw the before and after the before and after X-rays, and it was wonderful. He his spinal cord had really been twisted. He had pretty much had that for most of his life. He began having dreams and encounters with ETs at night, and he said they were working on his spinal cord, working on his scoliosis. After several, as we call them, abductions, he contacted me with the new X-rays that he had been given, and I saw them, and his scoliosis was completely gone, and his spinal cord was in perfect alignment like a newborn child. He never felt better in his life. And after every abduction, he began to feel better and better to the point that now he is in just pitch perfect health.
Wow. Yeah, they're good at that. There's quite a few actually abductions when they really didn't want to go on the ship and they didn't even know they were there, but they came back and had. There are stories of people that have had kidney disease and cancers and stuff, and it was gone. So yeah, maybe that's another reason why that we haven't heard much about this, and the UFO information has been covered up because the pharmaceutical companies wouldn't like what they had to tell us.
Oh yeah. Because they got the means of being able to heal us that are far more greater than we have. They got the tools, they got the if you want to call it the medicine and the techniques to pretty much take our whole body and put us back as if we're, what's the word, fresh as a daisy almost.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And I've worked with numerous people that have contacted me telling me how wonderful they felt after having been healed. We're talking back problems, broken bones, even people that can't walk can now get up and walk thanks to the ETs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Do you have any cases like that where somebody had another real healing that you could talk about?
yes, I worked with a woman, and she was very very thankful because she has had memories from back when she was a child that of being with these ETs, and she had oh I almost want to call it like neuropathy, pain in the legs, and different things. That was very very hard for her to walk, and it was because her legs were always throbbing and hurting. And she was telling me about her encounters as a kid with ETs, and now that she is older, she was able to communicate with them through her mind, like telepathic messages, and they were able to hear her plea for help, for healing. And upon this was just a few years ago, she had been sitting back in her chair and had another encounter with these ETs, but she was able to get a message to them that she needs healing in her legs and throughout her body because she's in pain. They
Yeah.
promised her they would heal her, and she gave me the details on what she saw up there. And when she came back, she was able to move both her legs perfectly. She had no pain in her legs. The neuropathy, the pain was gone. Her swelling, her bruise marks on her legs were gone. Everything was in just beautiful.
Mm.
And she even told me that she thinks that possibly she could be like a child from them, which I've heard that before, like a star seed, almost a child. And they promised her they would keep an eye on her. And to this day, they still are. She's still in communication with them.
Yeah, that's amazing things. And have you heard that there probably, well, we know also that some of the ETs are working with the American government, possibly the Brits and the Russians and maybe other countries. There were one abductee that wrote about the fact that he was on the ship and somebody they had him on the table and then they left. So he got down from the table and he walked down the hallway and he saw some military officers. They were human military officers that they had uniforms like we do. So there was a cooperation between Well, the military and the extraterrestrial in this case. You probably heard about something like this also.
Oh yes, I've heard numerous stories to that affair where people have been aboard ships and they have saw look like military personnel. They've seen some of these ETs, believe it or not, because there's a total of 65 races, and some of these ETs they look just like us. They got doctor uniforms on, they got military uniforms on. Some of them that they're able to communicate and walk just like we do.
Yeah.
And some of the ones in military uniform, from what I was told, they were trying to preach a message of peace and to stop the war and stop the fighting. That they don't want us to destroy ourselves, which is what we're kind of doing in this world. We're hurting ourselves.
Yeah.
They want all of us to come together, and then when that happens, they can come down and join us and all be as one.
Do you have any indication from anything that you heard or seen? What would be a timeline for something to open up more to the point where the government just can't hold it anymore? They're going to have to say, yeah, they're real.
I think as more people, the general public, becomes more aware of this and starts to take a belief in these UFOs, the more that people come together and start acknowledging that there is life out there, I think the more the government's going to have to let go, because how many people can take a can take a per se, like how many people can believe in this? As it gets greater and greater, the government's going to pretty much be outnumbered because everybody's going to want answers. And we can only push so far. They're going to have to open up the documents, let the paperwork out, and give us what the answers we want.
Yeah. Oh, it's
It,
coming.
it will happen. It's a matter of all of us coming together and being in agreement with this, and then getting them to say, "Okay, you want to know the truth? Here it is. We won't fight you any longer."
And there are other countries that has already done this. The Russian Navy released pretty much all of their UFO information, I think, 2 years ago. But it's all in Russian, and we don't see anything of it to speak of. I've seen a few bits and pieces here and there, but somebody should really dig in. My Russian is bad, so I'm not the one to start translating anything, but somebody should do that. I think probably within MUFON, they have the capability and find someone that speaks fluent Russian that could do that.
Yeah, I don't know if there is anybody I don't know everybody in MUFON. I know most of the people, but I know I myself speak a little bit of German and Japanese, but not Russian. But if we could find somebody that does speak Russian, I would love to have that information transcribed and so we could all take a look at it.
Yeah. Now, Russian is a weird language. You speak in your throat half the time, and then you get letters you don't have otherwise, and it's really different. But I see it coming. It's on the horizon. It's coming our way, a better understanding. And I think that when the people start finding out what's being kept from them, not necessarily just the UFOs themselves, or the UAPs now, I guess. It's not just that, it's the technologies that is being kept from us, from health reasons, the healing technologies, free energy. Right, the Nazi Germans, they had free energy in 1941, 42, when they created the first, the Glocke. That was a free energy and a time travel device that they put into the Hanebu 2s to become the Thule motor, and then they used that as creating a bubble around the craft so they could travel through the Van Allen belt and go to the moon. When people find out all this been kept from us, I think they're gonna get pissed.
Right.
And it's about time.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And one thing that gets me is how they talk about you got these spaceships that are moving faster than we could ever imagine. They got better techniques and technology than we could ever imagine. And you got like the government and some of these officials that are saying, oh, that it's not real, that it's weather balloons, it's so on and so forth. Well, these reports that we're getting in about the speed and the technology, these same reports were being filed back in the 40s and 50s, and we didn't have technology like that then, but they did. And if people were reporting this back then and still reporting this to this day, I mean that's evidence in my book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the phenomenal technologies that the Americans got when they ran over Germany. I had actually on one of my computers, I had a test result from a test flight of a Honeyboo 2 when it went from the surface to 60,000 feet straight up against gravity in 3 minutes. Now that is fast. And the Honeyboo 3, they could travel, I think, about 40,000 miles an hour in atmosphere. Out of the atmosphere, there probably would be no limitations to what they could do. We have a lost century here. If we had listened to or be allowed to listen to Nikola Tesla, we would have been traveling among the stars right now.
Right.
Yeah, that's really, I feel cheated. Yeah. Any other good stories that MUFON has investigated?
Oh yes. Another good case that we did, and this kind of has to do with the speed of these ships. And there was a woman, a young girl at the time, that was driving along a road with her at the time her friend, and they saw this, or she saw this green orb up in the sky, and she was, for some reason, she was fixated on this green like orb or green light. She couldn't tell if it was an orb or a light, but it gradually got bigger and bigger, and so they stopped the car for moments, and this thing got real bright, and she began to detect. She could see almost like the shape and size of the ship that was inside the. She described it as like a green gas chamber, and when she looked through the green bright gas, she could see this look like a ship. And she nudged her boyfriend like this, hey, do you see this? Yes, I'm looking. And this ship came down to the ground, this green like gas chamber as she referred to it. She could tell the ship was in there, came down to the ground, and she was fixated on that. It rose back up and sped off at a very high rate of speed. I mean, it was like just split second, it was gone. And she looked at her boyfriend and she's like, well, okay, just take me on home. Let's just go home. And when she got home, on the dashboard of the car, there's like where the AM FM dial is, they got the clock. 2 hours had passed. Now
Really?
this sighting had only lasted, that what she saw was the green orb or light come down. The whole thing was only just a few minutes, but 2 hours had passed in that length of time. And of course, she went home, and later on, she contacted MUFON. I was the field investigator, and I worked with her for several days, helping understand what could have possibly happened. And there was one of those situations where, again, and we get this a lot, where people see these things and not necessarily right offhand, but later on they realize time had went by, and they always wonder what happened in between. She didn't have a hypnotherapy or hypnosis done, but she had a sighting that she will never forget. And I can tell you one even better than that, that was just very recent, and is a gentleman in his 90s getting ready to take his dog out. And this is one of those situations where it's like, wrong place at the wrong time. He grabbed his little dog, put him on the chain, take his dog outside to do its business. He opened up the door and immediately had the sense he was going to like pass out, completely pass out. When he came to, moments later, he had a big round bruise right here, a purple, bluish bruise, perfect circle, and his hands were completely looked like sunburned.
Hmm.
So of course I worked with him to help him understand what could have possibly happened. My theory is that the ship was going over his house. He just happened to walk outside at the moment that it happened. He didn't fully make it outside because he told me he had to hold on to the door to keep from passing out. That he didn't see the ship, but he knows something was up there because how else could he explain the sunburn and the bruise that he had? I told him that I think what happened was you just happened to walk out at the just at the right time to see to experience the heat from the ship going over. So I've worked with people that have had sunburns on their arms and from getting too close, too much contact, too close to the ship.
Hmm.
And right now he's in the process of determining whether he wants to have hypnotherapy or not to see if he recalls anything. It's still a work in progress.
I think there's another one that needs a hypnosis session. That can really answer a lot of questions, even questions that you didn't know you had.
Right. And how many of us could have possibly had encounters in our life and just not been aware of it due to the missing time or just due to the fact that they don't want us to remember? In some aspects, you hear stories where people say that we are all one big family in a way because we're all together in some forms.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that have experienced that missing time. A lot of people. But we always get in the middle of it and we try to explain it away somehow.
Exactly.
We're good at that.
In fact, I'll never forget my very first sighting that I had. Um, this is back when I was just a young kid. They didn't have cameras like they do nowadays. Back then, you had to have the film and get everything loaded. And of course, with UFOs, you don't got time for that sometimes. But I was looking up to the east and I saw this ship with red, blue, and green lights flashing around. I thought, what in the world's that? And no sooner than I said that, I didn't see it move. It was like a switch went off and it was gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. But any other ones? One more you can mention?
Yeah, there's let me see if I can come up with one more really good story for you. Yeah, there was a case that I did, and this is kind of I was going to save this for last anyways. It's kind of a heartfelt case because she, this person I worked with was so traumatized and hurt because she had had numerous encounters, and she began to feel like that this was kind of like a punishment in a way. She didn't know how to cope and understand what she was going through because it was constantly happening. And she contacted MUFON and they had me work with her, and I worked with her for numerous days, helping her understand why is this happening. Why was she the one chosen to go through all of this, and how can I help her with this? So I used a technique because I'm a psychic remote viewer, and I used a form. I wrote her out a meditation uh, of sentence, kind of like a paragraph, to take and able to use meditation to take her mind at night away from her fear. Because in this meditation, I have her read this and listen to kind of like vibrational music. And I transport her to a different point in time, a time where she might be, let's say, maybe she wants to go to the beach because she loves the beach, or maybe she loves beautiful gardens and scenery. So by putting her into this meditative state, when she goes to sleep at night, she can visualize the beautiful scenery, and that will enable her to rest easier and not feel the presence of the ETs coming, not sense their what they may do to her when they come, because her mind is in a different location, in a more peaceful location. So to her, it no longer happens. And to this day, with the meditation, the words of encouragement, and the help that I give her and other patients I've done this for, I can put them in a happier state of mind. As far as they're concerned, these encounters don't happen anymore, or rarely happen, because of my help. And anybody who has, maybe they have an ET encounter and they're watching this, and maybe they're thinking, I could use help. Well, if you're able to shift your mindset, like I teach people, they can go somewhere else at night or anytime during the day and get away from the negativity. And that's basically what it is shifting your thought process to a better area.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the things in the sky, and I've seen quite a few of them, they probably are our own too.
Right.
We know they have it at Area 51, S4, where they are doing the research and then bring them on the ground and build them there. The Germans built the Haunebus over at in the underground bases over there. And these kinds of things, they usually go underground where they build them. And I wonder how many do they have? What kind of, how do you think, is there a big portion of what we see that is our own, or is it just a few? What do you think?
I think that that there is more that we are building, that of course we're building some of these to put out for like fear, because they want us to see that and get scared. But there's been reports of these things being man-made, built clear back into even the early 60s. But I think they're doing it more now because they want to put out that fear even greater than what they've ever wanted to put it out. But I think the overall ratio, I think it's going to be 80% UFO, and let's say maybe 35 to 40% man-made, because I think as we're man making these things, I think we're going to get outnumbered in the long run.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure these ETs, these aliens, I'm sure they're aware of our man-made objects, and they wanted to. They got the power to get around that too, because they got speeds and things they can do that we still cannot make or produce.
Yeah. Well,
We get reports in sometimes of these ships. They look like a tic tac, but some of the reports, these ships, they completely turn into a saucer just in a blink of an eye.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. It's but if we keep our ear to the ground right now, there's more and more coming out, and there will be this year. I am almost sure it's going to be this year when it finally comes a statement saying that yes, they're real, extraterrestrials are real, because we've been talking to them. I'm expecting that this year.
Right. I do agree, and it wouldn't surprise me if within the next couple of years they don't make a statement back to us plain and clear of what they're hoping, what they're wanting.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we're getting down towards the end of the show here, but we got to remember also the head of the Lockheed Skunk Works, Ben Rich. He made in a statement one time, and he said, "We have the technology to take ET home, and it will not take a lifetime to do it. If you have seen it on Star Trek, we already know how to do it." So, if that's the case, that involves warp speed, faster than light speed. Star Trek went to 10 times, warp 10. That's 10 times the speed of light. And he made that statement. Ben Rich made that statement in 1978. Can you imagine what we have now? 45 years later?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's going to be exciting. We're young enough. We're going to get to see this unfold.
I can't wait to see how it unfolds, and I think we're going to be in for, some of us will be in for a shock, and some of us, like you and me, might say, "I knew it."
Yeah. And that's the thing, that when this happens, it's not an if anymore. It's a when it happens. People are going to come running to us and say, "I know you were talking about this, but I didn't take it serious. What is really going on? What do I need to know?" We have to be there for them, because they're going to come. I have a few relatives that is thinking I'm an idiot, but that's okay.
I got people that look at me at times and they say, "How do you know? How do you know?" I say, "Well, if you believe it in here, and you put all the facts together, it's obvious in a way."
Yeah. Yeah, and when it comes to the secret space program, even there, I think it was a few years ago now, there was a U.S. Senator, Mike Gravel. He was on the Armed Services Committee in the funding area of it. And he made the statement in an interview also, "We have a space force. It is in existence. It's there." That was several years before Trump created the Space Force. So if we had a Space Force back then, what were they doing, and what were they flying, and who was doing it? Was it in cooperation with the 30 names of non-terrestrial officers, or was it on the May or USS Encounter? What else do they have out there? We need to know.
And we will get the answers. I think it's going to come sooner than a lot of us expect.
Yep, absolutely. Well, where can people get a hold of you if they want to know more? Let me just give you the floor for just talk a little bit about how they can reach you.
Yeah, if you want to file a UFO report and maybe you saw something or you need help with maybe you've been abducted and you need assistance, contact MUFON and fill out their questionnaire. Or for those of you that may want to speak to me directly, you can go to mufon.chris@yahoo.com and you can contact me, and I can even file a report for you. You can speak with me personally. And also, for those of you who are interested, I do paranormal investigations. If you go to YouTube, go to SWPI Pekin. That's SWPI Pekin. You can check out our paranormal shows, and you can even contact us if you need help. And keep your eyes to the skies, everyone, because the truth is coming out, and I think it's going to be quicker than a lot of us think.
Sounds good. Hey, thank you very much for being our guest today. And I'll give it a little time, a few months. I'd like to have you back on again to talk about more of these cases, because there's pearls in there.
There is.
All right. Hey, thank you very much for being with us, and we will see you next week, same time, same place, and we'll see you there. Thank you for being with us, Chris.
Thank you, Og. Good night, everyone.
Yeah.